What if one of the biggest matches of Alexandra Eala's young career isn't a Grand Slam final, but a round of 16 showdown that could redefine her season? That's exactly what's unfolding today as the rising Filipino sensation prepares to face Canada's Leylah Fernandez in a highly anticipated rematch at the WTA DC Open, just days after producing one of the tournament's biggest upsets by battling back to defeat former world number 4 Zheng Qinwen. Eala now finds herself standing across the net from another proven champion with one of the most dangerous left-handed games on the WTA Tour. On paper, it's simply another round of 16 match, but in reality, it feels much bigger than that. For Alexandra Eala, this is another opportunity to prove that her recent breakthrough isn't just a hot streak. It could be the beginning of something special. Every victory over an established star strengthens a belief that she belongs among the sport's elite. Every match is another chapter in a career that tennis fans around the world are watching more closely than ever before. For Leylah Fernandez, however, the mission is equally clear. The former U.S. Open finalist knows exactly what it takes to thrive under pressure. She has built her reputation on speed, resilience, and fearless shot-making against some of the biggest names in women's tennis. Facing a confident and rapidly improving Eala means there will be no room for complacency. And perhaps that's what makes this matchup so fascinating. Neither player is expected to give away easy points. Neither player likes backing down from long rallies. Neither player lacks confidence. Instead, fans should expect intensity from the opening serve. But there's another layer to this story that makes today's encounter even more compelling. These two players aren't strangers. They've already shared the court before, giving both camps valuable insight into each other's strengths and tendencies. That previous meeting means there will be fewer surprises and more tactical adjustments from the very first game. Instead of learning on the fly, both players arrive with a blueprint, but only one can execute it better when the pressure reaches its highest point. Momentum may also play a significant role. Eala enters this match riding a wave of confidence after recovering from a one-set deficit against Zheng Qinwen. Rather than panic after dropping the opening set, she gradually increased the pace, improved her court positioning, and eventually took complete control of the match. That comeback wasn't just physically impressive. It demonstrated growing mental maturity, something every top player needs to succeed consistently on the WTA Tour. Fernandez, meanwhile, has looked composed in Washington as well. Her straight sets victory over Magdalene ensured she arrived in a round of 16 without spending unnecessary time on court, potentially giving her a slight physical advantage heading into this clash. But whether freshness outweighs Eala's confidence is one of the biggest questions surrounding today's contest. So what should fans expect? Will Eala continue her remarkable rise by knocking off another established star? Can Fernandez use her experience to slow the Filipinos' momentum before it grows even stronger? Or are we about to witness one of the most entertaining matches of the tournament? Those questions have captivated tennis fans across the Philippines, Canada, and beyond, because this isn't simply about advancing to the quarterfinals. It's about confidence. It's about momentum. And it's about proving who is ready to take the next step in one of the most competitive eras of women's tennis. But before making any prediction, we need to examine exactly how both players arrived at this moment, and why this matchup could become a fascinating battle of tactics, resilience, and mental strength. To understand why this round of 16 clash has attracted so much attention, it's important to look at the paths both players took to get here. While their journeys have been different, they arrive on the same court carrying similar ambitions: to build momentum during the North American hardcourt swing and send a message before the season's biggest tournaments. Alexandra Eala's campaign began with one of the toughest opening round assignments imaginable. Drawn against Olympic gold medalist and former world number 4 Zheng Qinwen, many observers believed the Filipina would need to produce one of the finest performances of her career just to stay competitive. The match initially seemed to follow that script. Zheng's powerful baseline game immediately put Eala under pressure. The Chinese star dictated many of the early rallies with heavy ground strokes, forcing Eala to defend deep behind the baseline. The opening set slipped away, and it appeared that experience and power might once again prove too much. But then something changed. Rather than trying to hit harder than Zheng, Eala began making smarter decisions. She started varying the height of her shots. She mixed aggressive cross-court angles with deeper, safer returns. Instead of rushing winners, she patiently waited for shorter balls before attacking. It wasn't a dramatic tactical overhaul. It was a series of small adjustments that gradually shifted the rhythm of the match. As the rallies grew longer, Eala's confidence grew with them. Her footwork became sharper. Her movement looked freer. Her timing off both wings improved noticeably. Most importantly, she refused to let one loss set define the outcome. Point after point, game after game, she slowly turned the momentum in her favor until the comeback was complete. Victories like that often mean far more than simply reaching the next round. They reveal a player's ability to solve problems during competition rather than relying solely on pre-match preparation. At the highest level of professional tennis, those adjustments often separate good players from future champions. However, today's challenge is entirely different. Leylah Fernandez presents a style unlike Zhang's. Instead of overwhelming opponents with raw power, Fernandez thrives on relentless court coverage, quick transitions, and intelligent point construction. She is one of those players who can transform defense into attack within a single rally. That ability makes her particularly dangerous against aggressive opponents. If Eala attacks too early, Fernandez has the speed to retrieve seemingly impossible shots. If Eala becomes too passive, Fernandez is capable of stepping inside the baseline and taking control herself. That's why patience may become one of the most valuable weapons in today's match. Few players understand pressure quite like Fernandez. Her remarkable run to the US Open final several years ago introduced her to a global audience. Along the way, she defeated multiple top-ranked opponents, showing incredible composure despite her young age. Those experiences continue to shape the way she competes today. Big stadium? No problem. Hostile crowd? She's handled that before. Long three-set battle? That's familiar territory. That experience doesn't guarantee victory, but it often helps during the biggest moments, especially when a match becomes tight in the closing stages. Still, experience alone rarely wins tennis matches. Execution does. And that's where Alexandra Eala has impressed so many analysts recently. Her serve has become more reliable under pressure. Her return positioning appears increasingly confident. Perhaps most encouraging of all, she now seems willing to stay committed to her game plan even after losing difficult points. That mental discipline is often overlooked by casual fans. Professional tennis is filled with momentum swings. One spectacular winner can be followed immediately by an unforced error. Champions aren't those who avoid mistakes altogether. They're the players who recover from them the quickest. That quality could become decisive today. Another fascinating element will be the contrast in playing styles. Both competitors prefer controlling rallies from the baseline, but they achieve that control differently. Eala often looks to build pressure through consistent depth before accelerating with well-timed ground strokes. Fernandez, meanwhile, excels at changing direction unexpectedly, forcing opponents to cover more of the court than they initially anticipate. These subtle tactical differences could produce some of the longest and most entertaining rallies of the tournament. Then there's the psychological factor. Every upset changes expectations. Earlier in the week, Eala entered the tournament with relatively little pressure. Now the situation is different. After eliminating a highly seeded opponent, attention naturally increases. Media coverage grows. Fan expectations rise. Every point suddenly feels more significant. How a young player manages that shift can reveal just as much as any forehand or backhand. For Fernandez, the challenge is almost the opposite. She knows many headlines are focused on Eala's rise. Sometimes that can serve as motivation. Experienced competitors often embrace opportunities to remind everyone why they remain among the tour's toughest opponents. That dynamic creates an intriguing battle beyond the scoreboard. It's not just about shot making. It's about composure. It's about adapting under pressure. And it's about recognizing exactly when to attack and when to stay patient. As first serve approaches, one thing already seems certain. Neither player is likely to hand over this match easily. Every service game could become a battle. Every break point may feel like a turning point. And if the contest lives up to expectations, fans could be treated to one of the standout matches of the Washington tournament. But the biggest question still remains unanswered. when the pressure reaches its highest level, whose game is better equipped to survive, and whose weaknesses could ultimately decide the outcome. Every great tennis match eventually comes down to more than talent. It becomes a contest of adjustments. Who can recognize the changing patterns first? Who can solve problems under pressure? And who can continue trusting their game when the momentum suddenly shifts? Those are the questions surrounding Alexandra Eala and Leylah Fernandez as they prepare for this highly anticipated round of 16 battle. Let's begin with Eala. One of the biggest reasons her game has evolved so quickly is her willingness to construct points patiently rather than chase spectacular winners too early. Against many powerful opponents, she has shown an increasing ability to absorb pace before redirecting the ball with impressive precision. That patience may become one of her greatest assets today. Fernandez thrives when opponents become impatient. If players rush the point, she often turns their aggression against them using her exceptional anticipation and defensive skills. For Eala, the challenge is finding the perfect balance. She cannot afford to become overly defensive because Fernandez is more than capable of taking command of rallies. At the same time, attacking recklessly could play directly into the Canadian strengths. Finding that middle ground will likely determine how competitive this match becomes. Another area worth watching is the serve. Neither player relies solely on overpowering opponents with huge deliveries. Instead, placement, variation, and consistency are likely to matter much more than raw speed. The first serve doesn't always need to produce an ace. Sometimes its biggest value comes from setting up the very next shot. If Eala consistently lands quality first serves, she'll have a better opportunity to dictate rallies from the opening exchange. If Fernandez returns aggressively and immediately takes control of those rallies, Eala could find herself under constant pressure. Return games may become even more important. Modern women's tennis is filled with elite returners, and both of these players have demonstrated the ability to break serve multiple times during competitive matches. That means holding serve won't necessarily come easily. Instead, fans should expect numerous extended deuce games, pressure-filled breakpoints, and momentum swings that could completely reshape a set within minutes. Then there is movement. This might be the most underrated aspect of today's matchup. Fernandez has built much of her success around remarkable court coverage. She tracks down difficult balls, changes direction quickly, and forces opponents to hit one extra shot. Many players believe they've won the point, only to watch Fernandez somehow retrieve another impossible ball. That resilience can become mentally exhausting. Eala, however, has also made noticeable improvements in this department. Her footwork appears cleaner than it did earlier in her career, allowing her to transition from defense into attack with much greater confidence. Instead of simply chasing balls, she's beginning to recover into stronger court positions after each shot. Those small technical improvements often go unnoticed by casual viewers. Professional coaches, however, recognize how valuable they are over the course of long matches. Mental toughness could become the biggest storyline of all. Pressure in tennis is unique. There's no timeout to regroup. No teammate can step onto the court to change momentum. Every adjustment must come from the player alone. That is what makes matches like this so compelling. Imagine Eala falls behind by an early break. Does she stay committed to her strategy, or does she begin forcing riskier shots? Now imagine Fernandez loses a close first set after missing several opportunities. Can she immediately reset and respond? These psychological moments rarely appear on a statistics sheet, yet they often determine who walks away victorious. Another interesting factor is crowd energy. Although Washington is far from Manila or Montreal, Alexandra Eala has developed an increasingly passionate international fan base. Filipino supporters have traveled to tournaments around the world, and their enthusiasm has become one of the most heartwarming stories in recent women's tennis. Fernandez, of course, is no stranger to enthusiastic crowds either. Throughout her biggest career moments, she's demonstrated an ability to embrace loud atmospheres rather than become distracted by them. If today's crowd becomes heavily invested in the contest, both competitors should be comfortable performing under that spotlight. One tactical adjustment to monitor involves rally length. If points remain short, Fernandez's aggressive returning and quick transitions may become increasingly effective. However, If Eala succeeds in extending rallies and forcing longer exchanges, the match could become far more unpredictable. Long rallies demand patience. They demand concentration, and they often reward players willing to make one fewer mistake than their opponent. Those razor-thin margins are where elite matches are decided. So, who enters this contest with the advantage? From a purely experienced standpoint, Fernandez has competed on some of the sport's biggest stages and has repeatedly shown she can perform when expectations are at their highest. From a momentum standpoint, however, Eala arguably arrives with tremendous confidence after her impressive comeback victory in the previous round. Confidence versus experience. Momentum versus proven consistency. Youthful belief versus established success. It's a fascinating contrast that makes predicting the outcome incredibly difficult. If Eala serves efficiently, limits unforced errors, and remains patient during the longest rallies, she has every opportunity to challenge one of the tour's most resilient competitors. If Fernandez dictates the tempo early, applies relentless pressure on return, and capitalizes on key breakpoint opportunities, her experience could become the deciding factor. That's why many analysts expect this encounter to be decided not by spectacular highlights, but by dozens of subtle moments that casual fans may barely notice. One extra first serve, one perfectly timed backhand, one courageous decision on breakpoint, one moment of composure when everything is on the line. And perhaps that's what makes this round of 16 clash so captivating. The winner won't simply earn a place in the quarterfinals. She'll gain valuable confidence heading deeper into one of the most important stretches of the hard court season. But before we make a final prediction, there's still one final piece of the puzzle to examine. The bigger picture, what this match means for both careers, and why today's result could resonate well beyond Washington. When the final point is played today, only one player will move on. But regardless of the result, this match carries significance that extends well beyond a place in the quarterfinals. For Alexandra Eala, every appearance against an established WTA contender is another opportunity to accelerate her development. Rising through professional tennis is rarely a straight line. There are breakthrough victories, difficult defeats, and countless lessons learned along the way. The players who eventually establish themselves at the highest level are usually those who continue improving after every match, whether they win or lose. That's why today's contest is so valuable. If Eala defeats Leylah Fernandez, it would represent another impressive statement during the North American hardcourt swing and further strengthen belief that she is capable of consistently challenging experienced players on the WTA Tour. If she falls short, the experience remains invaluable. Competing under pressure against opponents who have already proven themselves on the biggest stages is exactly how young players continue to grow. That perspective is sometimes forgotten in modern sports. Fans naturally focus on immediate results. Players and coaches often focus on long-term progress. And that's an important distinction. Every tournament offers new information, which tactical adjustments worked, which patterns created opportunities, which situations exposed areas still needing improvement. Those answers often become more valuable than a single result. For Leylah Fernandez, today's challenge carries a different kind of importance. As a former Grand Slam finalist, expectations naturally remain high whenever she enters a tournament. She understands that consistency is one of the defining characteristics of elite players. Advancing through early rounds, handling dangerous opponents, and maintaining composure under pressure are all essential parts of rebuilding momentum throughout a long season. Facing an opponent like Eala is never straightforward. Young, confident players often compete without fear. They swing freely, they embrace the moment, and they force experienced opponents to earn every point. That is precisely why Fernandez cannot afford to underestimate this challenge. She'll need to rely on her experience, tactical discipline, and ability to manage momentum when pressure inevitably builds. Another reason this matchup has generated so much excitement is the growing international interest in women's tennis. The sport continues to welcome talented players from new regions, bringing fresh stories and passionate fan bases to tournaments around the world. Alexandra Eala's rise has inspired countless young athletes in the Philippines and across Asia. Meanwhile, Fernandez continues to inspire fans through her resilience, determination, and exciting style of play. When players with those backgrounds meet on one court, the match becomes about more than rankings or tournament points. It becomes a celebration of how global women's tennis has become. Now comes the question everyone has been asking. Who has the edge? Based on recent form, Eala enters the match carrying significant confidence after a comeback victory over Zhang Qinwen. She has shown remarkable composure, intelligent shot selection, and growing maturity during pressure moments. Fernandez, however, possesses one advantage that can never be underestimated: experience. She has already navigated the pressure of major tournaments, handled enormous expectations, and delivered outstanding performances against some of the sport's biggest names. That combination of experience and resilience makes her an exceptionally difficult opponent. So what is the prediction? This appears to be one of those matches where momentum could swing repeatedly. Neither player is likely to dominate from start to finish. Instead, fans should expect long rallies, emotional momentum shifts, and several pivotal games that could ultimately determine the winner. If Alexandra Eala serves consistently, remains patient from the baseline, and converts her opportunities on the biggest points, she has every chance to produce another memorable victory. If Leylah Fernandez successfully absorbs Eala's early aggression, controls the tempo, and uses her experience during the crucial moments, she could find herself advancing to the quarterfinals. In other words, this is a matchup that feels remarkably balanced. Rather than predicting a comfortable winner, the evidence suggests fans should prepare for a fiercely competitive battle where composure may prove just as important as power. And that's exactly why tennis fans around the world are eager to watch. Because matches like these are where reputations are strengthened, where confidence is tested, where careers continue to evolve. Whether you're cheering for Alexandra Eala, supporting Leylah Fernandez, or simply enjoying world-class tennis, this round of 16 clash promises compelling storylines from the opening serve to the final handshake at the net. One player will continue her journey. The other will leave with lessons for the next challenge. But both have already demonstrated why they belong on one of the sport's biggest stages. As the first ball is tossed into the air, everything discussed, the tactics, the momentum, the confidence, and the anticipation, will give way to the only thing that truly matters: the tennis. So sit back, enjoy the match, and let's see who rises to the occasion when the pressure is at its highest. If you enjoyed this preview, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest match previews, breaking tennis news, post-match analysis, and exclusive coverage of Alexandra Eala's journey on the WTA Tour. Thank you for watching and enjoy the match.